For the better part of a century, one country has pretty much sat at the top of the global food chain. But a massive shift is happening right now. A change so big, it's being whispered about in the most secure rooms in Washington. And tonight, we're going to pull back the curtain on that story. Let's get into it. Just stop and think about that for a second. Imagine that headline flashing on your phone. Would the world suddenly feel more stable, or would all the systems that we kind of take for granted just start to buckle? It's a huge question, and the answer, well, it might be a lot closer than any of us really want to admit.
Because this isn't some Hollywood script. This exact scenario is being debated and planned for as we speak. We're going to look at this through the lens of a hypothetical document. Let's call it the 2025 National Security Strategy. A document that, if you could read it, would reveal this quiet, creeping panic right at the very heart of American power.
So yeah, we're talking about the National Security Strategy. And in the version we're imagining for 2025, it tells a story about the future that, well, you don't often hear spoken so bluntly. So what is this thing? Well, every few years, the White House puts out a new one. It's basically the playbook for global power. But if you read between the lines of this future edition, you don't just see confidence. No, you find this deep, unsettling anxiety about one challenge in particular. That's it. That is the obsession. It's not Russia, it's not terrorism. It's a rival that America is finally realizing it might not be able to outrun anymore. And this rival is totally different from any opponent it's ever faced. See, the Cold War, that was a battle of ideas against an economy that was basically falling apart. But this is something else entirely. This is a fight for control. Control over our technology, our factories, our energy, and the very rules of how the world works. And it's a fight against an absolute economic giant. So how on earth did we get here? Well, that document would have to confess that it all started with what you can only call a massive, decades-long American miscalculation. For 30 years, the big idea in Washington was simple. If you give a country economic freedom, political freedom is sure to follow. The bet was that by welcoming China into the global market, it would start to look a lot more like us. Well, it turns out that capitalism made China incredibly rich, but the Communist Party just tightened its grip on power. And that's the central paradox here, isn't it? This wasn't some accident. It was the direct result of a policy that lasted for decades. And to really get how it happened, we have to rewind the clock to one single top-secret moment that completely changed the game. Let's jump back to July 1971. We're at the peak of the Cold War. The world thinks it knows where all the major players are, but one of the most powerful men in America is about to literally disappear off the map. America's national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, is on a diplomatic trip, but soon after he lands, poof, he's gone. The official cover story? A bad case of a stomach bug. The reality? He was on a secret plane flying deep into Mao's China, a country the U.S. hadn't officially spoken to in more than 20 years. You see, America thought it was making this brilliant chess move against the Soviets. But China, they saw it completely differently. They saw a superpower getting battered and bruised by the Vietnam War, coming to them for help. In their eyes, America was the one who needed something. So that secret meeting kicked the door wide open for diplomacy and trade. But China didn't just burst onto the world stage. Oh no! Instead, they adopted a strategy of incredible, calculated patience. I mean, the way America underestimated what was coming next is almost funny now. Kissinger himself thought China didn't really have much the world wanted to buy. Flash forward 30 years, and just one American company, Walmart, was bringing in $18 billion worth of Chinese goods in a single year. The U.S. didn't just open a door, it unleashed an economic force of nature. And for decades, China just played the long game. They focused on building themselves up, factories, schools, you name it, all while sticking to that core mantra, don't make waves, just get stronger. Then came the 2008 financial crisis. That was the first big sign for Beijing. They saw that the American system had cracks. And then, when Xi Jinping took power, the quiet part got said out loud. The time for hiding was officially over. And with that one declaration, the whole hide and bide era slammed shut. The quiet competition that had been simmering under the surface for years suddenly exploded into open conflict, a head-on collision that's now happening on every front imaginable. All of a sudden, the rivalry was just
everywhere. You had trade wars, sanctions slapped on companies, and most important of all, an all-out battle for the technology that is going to define our future. For the very first time, China was hitting back, punch for punch, not as a lesser power, but as a real, genuine peer. Now, the centerpiece of America's strategy was to try and choke off China's access to the world's most advanced computer chips. The logic was pretty straightforward. Without our top-tier tech, their progress is going to hit a wall. And for a little while, it actually looked like it was working. Then this number appeared, 7 nanometers. In 2023, Huawei, a company buried under heavy US sanctions, released a brand new smartphone with a chip this advanced inside. This sent an absolute shockwave through the tech world. Why? Because everybody thought making a 7-nanometer chip was impossible without Western technology. Technology China was banned from getting. Look, this was never really about a phone. This was a declaration of technological independence. It was proof that China could now invent its way around American sanctions, building world-class tech all on its own. The US strategy of containment was failing, and the whole world was watching it happen in real time. Which brings us right back to that imaginary 2025 national security strategy and that quiet panic I mentioned. All the old, comfortable ideas about America's untouchable tech dominance, they're basically out the window. This is the question that's now keeping strategists in Washington up at night. That long-held belief that America could sort of manage, or at least slow down China's rise, well, it's pretty much evaporating right before our eyes. Because this isn't just about who has the biggest economy or the most powerful military. This is a fundamental fight over how the world is supposed to work, whose values, whose systems, and whose rules are going to shape all of our futures. And that leaves us with the most profound question of all. You know, we keep looking to the future, waiting for this big power shift to happen, but maybe we've already missed it. Maybe the era of one single superpower is already over, and we're all just now starting to wake up to the new world that's already here.